Before President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation took effect after the war ended in June 1865, discrimination and segregation was common throughout the United States. Many Americans practiced slavery believing it was moral, and the word equality between races was absent from our vocabulary. Unfortunately, segregation continued, especially in the South, long after the Emancipation Proclamation was set in place. But even after the walls between the segregated classrooms, bathrooms, and water fountains were torn down, discrimination lived on, and the word equality still seems to be struggling with finding a way into our terminology. Unequal judgment and treatment continue to exist in different racial groups in many social settings. Naturally, in an attempt to solve this issue at hand, a law was put into place that was thought to put an end to discrimination in areas such as employment and education. The definition of affirmative action is as follows: the action or policy favoring those who tend to suffer from discrimination, especially in relation to employment or education, positive discrimination. With an aim to make up for past discrimination while also preventing future discrimination, the word favoring should not be found in the definition of affirmative action. With one of the objectives being to make up for past discrimination, favoring those who tend to suffer from discrimination is logical. But favoring someone to make up for the past does not cover the second objective, which is to prevent future discrimination as well. The words affirmative action was first used by John F. Kennedy's executive order in 1961, forcing all government contractors to, quote, take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and that employees are treated during employment without regard to their race, creed, color, or national origin. Notice the word without regards to race, creed, etc. This does not seem to equate today's controversial use of the words affirmative action. In 2003, Supreme Court's ruling allowed the University of Michigan's law school to legally use race as one of the many factors in the admissions process. This is found in many schools all over the United States and in many job applications as well. Why is it that in an application that should be based solely on talent, uniqueness, and qualifications such as grades and scores, would race be a deciding factor? Do we think for some reason that minorities are not qualified? It seems that what we are doing is telling minorities, even the ones who have an equal advantage to start, that they still cannot compete and that they need help. Unfortunately, this leads to judgments other than discrimination.
We have the current occupant in the White House is a Harvard and Columbia grad.
No, he's affirmative action. That doesn't count. Legacies, affirmative action. Yeah, liberals
all
figure
these,
out. They have a workaround.
Is there any evidence he got in on affirmative action?
Yeah, he's a black American.
That doesn't mean he got in on affirmative. That's not right.
With affirmative action in place, it causes assumptions as to why an individual landed a job. In many cases, when a minority has a job or gets accepted to a school, people assume it was because of affirmative action, even when it very well could have been due to his or her success. We are continuing to point out the differences between people based on the color of their skin rather than that individual's unique qualities such as skills, personality, or cultural background. As humans, we have always looked for a social identity, a sense of belonging, a sort of division between us and them. This usually causes some kind of negative attitude towards the outgroup. This categorization can be harmless when it is associated with something like a sports team, but when related to race, it can be offensive. In 2015, discrimination and profiling continues to exist across all races. The Supreme Court has decided that the Voting Rights Act is outdated and no longer needs to be held in place. This raises questions as to whether this will allow our society to go back to the way things were before the law. This law was set into place with a success in prohibiting racial discrimination in voting. With the abolishment of affirmative action, many might argue that this will lead to discrimination again towards minorities. But the fact that affirmative action has not yet succeeded in ending discrimination, maybe it is time to try something else.
Affirmative action is a set of initiatives and policies in the United States designed to enforce diversity. Does it work? What do you think? Let's talk about it.
If we do it, the problem is that, again, you're going to be looking at one individual thing and you're not going to be looking at what the person what the person can do.
It's based in racism and sexism. It's looking at the person based on their race, color, creed, or sex. So it's using that to get rid of it, which is kind of an iffy ground, right?
Exactly.
You've been a strong supporter of affirmative action.
Yes.
You and your wife went to Harvard Law School, got plenty of money, you're running for president. Why should your daughters, when they go to college, get affirmative action?
Well, first of all, I think that my daughters should probably be treated by any admissions officer as folks who are pretty advantaged. And I think that there's nothing wrong with us taking that into account as we consider admissions policies at universities. I think that we should take into account white kids who have been disadvantaged and have grown up in poverty and shown themselves to have what it takes to succeed.
If our goal is to help those who are disadvantaged, then admission should be based on those who are most qualified, while also focusing on disadvantages, not race. In this video, it seems that while Obama says that he agrees with affirmative action, he is construing the definition by saying that we should focus on advantages versus disadvantages rather than race. There are many people who support affirmative action, but when it was put into a different perspective, as in the next video, people began protesting how wrong this demonstration really was.
UC Berkeley's college Republicans are protesting Governor Jerry Brown's affirmative action-like bill. He is set to sign the bill. He hasn't done so yet. However, the college Republicans are upset because they feel like this is reverse racism. Okay, and what they're doing with their bake sale is they're selling baked goods for adjusted prices, right? So white students would pay $2 for the baked goods. Latino and Hispanic students would pay $1. Asians would pay $1.50. Blacks would pay 75 cents, and Native Americans would pay 25 cents. As you can imagine, many students are upset with this bake sale. Some are calling it racist, some are calling it insensitive.
One more price break in there. And all women get an extra 25 cents off of each of those costs.
Right, so if you are a Native American woman, you will get free goods. So show up at Berkeley.
We did expect opposition. We expected a lot of outrage from this event. We didn't expect, first, the volume, the amount of response that we got in the first few hours, hundreds of posts on our Facebook page. And then secondly, the tone of some of the responses. We expected people to be upset. We didn't expect personal threats to be made. There were implicit and explicit threats made to the organizers of the event, to burning down the table, to throwing our baked goods at us, and other kinds of physical threats. So,
as angry as this racial bake sale act made people, they were actually sending a good message. Why should someone be treated differently or given special privileges such as a reduced price just because of the color of their skin or ethnic background? This bake sale is a more modern-day act of prefigurative politics in a way that people are standing up for equal rights of everyone by going against the political norm of affirmative action and attempting to change the way our culture behaves. In order to solve the problem of discrimination, we should not be resorting to a sort of reverse discrimination. We need to work on completely erasing the word discrimination from our vocabulary. Rather than affirmative action, we should be more focused on equal opportunity. This means that all people should be treated similarly without prejudices. Jobs should be given to those most qualified, not for something such as circumstances of birth, upbringing, friendship ties to whoever is in power, religion, sex, ethnicity, race, caste, disability, age, gender, or sexual orientation. A chance at improvement should be offered to everyone, but not handed to someone not willing to take on the challenge. Everyone should have an equal chance to compete with an equal chance to succeed or fail based solely on that individual's work ethic. After all, who wins the race is based on talent, hard work, and competitive drive.